It's time now for Igniting Change, a weekly provocative and empowering program where you, the listener, can ignite change. Now here's your host, Barbara Onwine.
Get up, stand up.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Igniting Change. We have a major show for you today. We're so excited to talk with these amazing guests that we have lined up for you today and to catch you up on everything that's going on. But before we get into our show, let me bring up my amazing, brilliant, bold, courageous, strategic, one of the nation's best lawyers, especially when you're talking about voting rights and civil rights. You know I'm talking about none other than the chair of the board of the Transformative Justice Coalition and president of the TJC Action Fund, none other than Daryl D. Jones. Hey, Attorney Jones.
Hey, Barbara. It must be Tuesday, must be noon Eastern Standard Time because we're talking about igniting change. Barbara, my goodness. I mean, we have an exciting show today that's lined up with just some really powerful guests from across the nation that just are going to be really just bringing some valuable information with regards to what's happening during these times, during these electoral cycle times. And I tell you, Barbara, but I know that you've got to first start out by jumping on Minnesota.
You
Minnesota.
Knew it.
That
you
thing
knew
came
it.
out of Minnesota was Prince. After Prince, I don't know what happened to Minnesota. The state Republican Party there, Barbara. I know you want to talk about that for a second. Come on, man.
You know, and mentioning Prince, by the way, everyone, June is Black Music Month. So absolutely, Prince comes into this story in many ways, but we are upset. And we have issued a denunciation for the Minnesota GOP. The Republican Party had a conference of all of their members, and they had the nerve to start it off with a moment of silence in support of Derek Chauvin. If you heard that name, you said, wait a minute, that name sounds familiar. Yes, he's the man who was convicted of murdering George Floyd in 2020. He murdered him by putting his knee on that black man's neck until he died, despite all the protests from people around, despite Mr. Floyd saying, I can't breathe, despite all of that. And he was found and convicted, and they had the nerve to do a moment of silence as a tribute to him because they want him to be pardoned and they want him to be free. This is what we're talking about when we talk about anti-blackness. This is the essence of it. And it is critical for us to raise our voices and say, no, never. Not in our lifetime when we sit around and allow you to disrespect us, disrespect his memory, disrespect his family, disrespect the jurors, disrespect the legal system, because you have your own anti-black ideology. Absolutely unacceptable. Right, Daryl?
Absolutely, Barbara. And you wonder if they know what in the world they're talking about. Do you realize that if he was pardoned from the federal, he'd go to the state? With the federal right now, he's in low security. He go to the state, my goodness, he ain't going to be in low security.
Remember, he was convicted of murder and he was convicted of the federal charges also. Yes. So this is just, this is just ridiculous, but it just shows you how emboldened racists have become in this time and how screwed and distorted the Republican Party has become, that it just thinks that anti-blackness is part of its identity. That is not acceptable, folks. And I'm speaking here because this has to be addressed, that nonpartisan means that all parties should stand for all people. Statesmanship doesn't say you only stand for white people. that you only stand for one race and not all of us, because we all are the diversity, the multiracial diversity of this nation, all needs to be respected. This is absolutely outrageous. All right. oh boy. And of course, we have a shout out of concern and denunciation for the state of Louisiana for passing that new redistricting map that excluded a whole African American district. The same for the governor of Alabama, who voided, everybody, listen to me, who after all the people had voted, turned around and voided throughout the election results because they want to redistrict and get rid of a black district there, a district that has been held by an African-American congressman and who she wants to replace and get rid of that African-American district. So, folks, we got a problem. Our nation is in trouble, and that's why we're having the show we have today.
Barbara teed it up so nicely with regards to what's happening around the country and the challenges that are to the African-American vote. And so appropriately, our show today is entitled The Battle for the Ballot, the struggle for black representation after this U.S. Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act. And I tell you, it has really just touched off a lightning storm of activity across the nation. You're going to be hearing much more about the Good Trouble Lives On action that's going to be happening July 17th through the 19th. You're going to hear about Freedom Summer that's occurring. But in the midst of this storm, it's always an interesting question and an interesting occurrence to have people that step up to be certain that people are aware of what's happening. What does it mean for the voting rights to be gutted? Sometimes things need to be broken down to a level that everybody can really get it. And our first guest today is one of those people that continually breaks things down so that students can get it where he teaches, so that citizens can get it, so that people can get it, can get the message of the occurrence of what happens when black voting rights and black rights are under attack. Dr. Omekongo DiBinga, he's a trilingual poet. He's a professor of intercultural communications at American University. He's an award-winning leader for diversity, inclusion, and anti-racism strategist. He's a certified virtual speaker, a John Maxwell Top 30 leader, and he's the author of Lies About Black People, How to Combat Racist Stereotypes, and Why It Matters. Folks, if you ain't got that book, you need to go get it. I'm telling you, it's an awesome read. Welcome back to Igniting Change, Professor Omekongo DiBinga. Professor DiBinga, hello.
What's going on? How y'all doing?
We're good, thanks to you. You've been bringing the spirit and bringing the fire. So we are so happy that you're able to join us today. This is a delight.
Oh, the excitement is all mine. I just respect so much of everything you all are doing. And so anytime I get an opportunity to kick it with y'all, I'm here for it.
Well, I tell you, Dr. DiBinga, there's a new music release that you've put out, Jim Crow 2.0, and you gave me the opportunity to listen to it, and I shared it with Barbara and some other folks. And when I tell you that folks were going crazy over it, they're like, that's right, that's what we need at this point in time, is the Jim Crow 2.0 mantra and that song. Can you share with our audience what we're talking about with this Jim Crow 2.0 song? What is it, and why did you do it?
Well, if you're of a certain age, like me, you grew up at a time where hip-hop spoke to the issues of the day. And, of course, we've always had, misogyny in the music, gangster rap, and so on and so forth. But juxtaposed to every NWA song was Public Enemy. Juxtaposed to every Two Live Crew song was, KRS-One. And we've gotten so far away from that in hip-hop. Even rappers that may mention a little bit about things here and there, they don't speak directly to issues. And so my thing is, as a writer, as a rapper, rather than waiting for these guys to do it, I decided I have to do it myself. And so I was just looking at everything that was going on, and I just started writing, and everybody kept talking about Jim Crow 2.0, Jim Crow 2.0. And I just put that pen to paper and I just wrote it. I feel like, we need anthems during this time. We need theme music during this time. And I created that so that we could have something like that and to challenge other musicians to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Was there one particular point where, everything that was happening with the Voting Rights Act, from the Supreme Court to the redistricting efforts that were hitting the South, was there some point that you just got to where you said, this is the tipping point right here, that I've got to do something in response to this, and then you wrote Jim Crow 2.0?
Yeah, it was definitely the Calais decision. I mean, we knew that the Supreme Court was going to gut the Voting Rights Act. We knew that. It's like it's going to happen, but then when it actually hits you and you really see what they're doing, and when they basically make the Voting Rights Act basically just alive in name and paper only, I was just like, enough is enough. It's like they will stop at nothing to rip rights away from us. I heard Joy-Ann Reid, saying, a lot of people are saying Jim Crow 2.0, but it's actually John Crow because of the way that, John Roberts has been devoted to this for over 40 years. And I'm like, these guys have, what I mean? It's like these guys have devoted like their entire adult life to this, and maybe even before they were adults, to dismantling our rights. They've been patiently doing this to get to this day, and many of us are not as engaged and involved as what you two are doing and the cadre of young people that you're building to fight this. So many of us just watched it happen. We just let it happen. We didn't believe when you two and everybody else was saying this is coming, this is happening. We didn't believe the Roland Martins and everybody saying we got to do something. And so when they came out and did it, I'm like, yo, enough is enough. If I can share something that's going to help activate some new minds or motivate those already in the work, that I got to do it. That's everybody has to play their part. And that's my part.
That is so awesome. Yes, that is so awesome. Why don't you give our audience some of the lyrics to the song so that people can understand why this song is so awesome, and tell them how they can listen to the song. It is just amazing.
No, absolutely. Well, you can get this song if you just go. And so for some people who don't know, I created an AI rapper, and so the name of the rapper is OD the MC. My initials, Omekongo, DiBinga, OD the MC. So if you go to anywhere, Spotify, Apple Music, wherever, and you just type in OD the MC, O period, D period, the MC, the songs that I've been doing with this artist have been coming up. So some of the videos are AI generated, but I wrote all of the lyrics. AI doesn't write my stuff. And so you can get it anywhere. You can follow me you can follow me or OD the MC on Instagram, YouTube, and everywhere. So, some of the lyrics, it starts out, Jim Crow, the hook is Jim Crow 2.0 is alive and real. A silent coup is happening. They don't care how we feel. Democracy don't die in darkness. It dies in the light. If we want to make this right, we got to stand up and fight. This country's got so messy, got me nervous, son. Supreme Court went back to Plessy versus Ferguson. They followed their ancestors who created Jim Crow. In this millennium, it's Jim Crow 2.0. Instead of counting jelly beans, they changed the ID. My spidey sense telling me there's more to come. See, they scared of votes like cowards. As our districts they devour, they soured on the idea of us ever getting power. The Roberts Court robbing the country blind by gutting Section 2 and Section 5. So basically, the Voting Rights Act no longer alive. A silent coup taking place right in front of our eyes. So those are like, some of the lyrics. I put two verses together, and I just keep going in on it.
I got to tell you that when I hear the song, I'm dancing because it's just so I am. I'm dancing, and we had a meeting with thousands of people about 2 weeks ago, and we played it, right, Daryl?
Absolutely, absolutely. And with Dr. DiBinga's permission, and let me tell you, I mean, it was completely devoured. It was absorbed. It was appreciated. People were hooting, hollering, raising fists, everything else as it was going on. And you know, Doc, my
what's
favorite
up.
line in there is about the Roberts Court. Roberts Court robbing the country blind. I love it.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love the
Yes,
Clancestors. I love the Clancestors. That's one of my favorite lines. I love it.
Well, you know, I just had to do it. You know, when I think of like, you know, Sam Cooke and a song like, you know, Sam Cooke's like, you know, A Change Gonna Come. You know, from what I read in stories, you know, they said that they felt like a lot of musicians were saying stuff, but he wasn't saying much, and he felt like this was like his contribution to the movement. And that's just kind of how I feel with this. And so, you know, when I say things like in the song, like, what decision will you envision to end the derision? Because of surgical precision, they made deep incisions with a vision worked for decades to bring to fruition, while some of us stay resting like they checking at the Westin. You know, it's just like a call to like, y'all can't sit this out. You know, you can't sit this out. And, you know, then towards the end, you know, I take a little jab at a guy who took a jab at me a while ago. I say, you know, we got to register to vote like our ancestors did. Listen to real intellectuals, not Stephen A. Smith. You know, we have to make sure that our information sources are legit as well, because we got people out there who act like they're speaking for us but are actively working against us.
And that happens all the time. And I'm so glad that we have been joined by one of our nation's foremost thought leaders, one of the really amazing change makers. She has done so much. And Daryl, why don't you go ahead and let everyone know about Dr. K. Wise Whitehead, who's joined us from come on now.
Oh, absolutely, Barbara. You know, Dr. Whitehead, this is not her first voyage with us, y'all. You've heard her on Igniting Change before. She's the founder and executive director of the Carson Institute for Race, Peace, and Social Justice. She's the head of the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, ASALH. She's the immediate past president of the National Women's Studies Association. She's a professor of communication for African American Studies at Loyola University in Maryland, and she is the host of Today with Dr. K on WEAA 88.9 FM. Welcome back to Igniting Change, Dr. K. Whitehead.
Thank you so much. It is my absolute pleasure to be on with you, be on with Barbara Unwine. I'm rapping along. I love that whole piece around the Klansmen. I'm like, let's do this thing right now.
Thank you.
Reverend Lennox Yearwood of the Hip Hop Caucus loves to say, and it's a good point that he makes, is that you can really tell it because people start coming up with these amazing, songs, amazing ways of articulating complex thoughts, just amazing ways of just lifting up our spirits. And also what I love about your song, Dr. DiBinga, is that it doesn't just lift up our spirits, but it lifts up our science. This is not this is not a complaint song.
That's right.
It's also
That's right. All about action.
But if you're listening to the song and you're taking down some of the bars, if I may call them bars, it can send you off. And you got to start thinking about John Roberts. And what does it mean that they're robbing them blind? Well, then you got to go figure out, what is John Roberts doing? I think this whole legacy of song, which has been something that's a constant in our community, we express ourselves there. It taps me and it makes me think about the Freedom Singers and Bernice Johnson Reagan. And what did that mean that you had these black women who became Sweet Honey in the Rock showing up in the spaces, putting both our pain and our joy, our resistance and our defiance, setting it to music, putting it to song, because even if you can't give a speech, you use your first natural God-given instrument. You can sing. You just go ahead. You can be off-key. That's fine. You'll get caught up in the moment of everybody else, and we won't even be able to hear you. So that's what I like about it. Really, really, very challenging and exciting.
No doubt.
I think she was talking about me, Daryl, about that off-key.
I thought she was talking about me.
I think I'm confessing, actually, because I'm always off-key. I think I'm just joining with the choir.
But I just love the fact that the reinforces resistance, that it reinforces defiance. It reinforces the Black radical tradition. It has so much there that calls on us in this moment to not, as some people, I get these calls all the time from people saying, Barbara, I want to stay in bed. It's so depressing, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, girl, you better get up. So it is such a great motivational song. And I love that it collectivizes, that all the imagery in it is collective action, collective and unified action. I love that so much. Tell us, Dr. DiBinga, what led you to make that particular aspect of the song so strong?
Well, I was trained, as a motivational speaker, by Les Brown, and one of the things he would always say, and I used to learn so much from him and Willie Jolly and others. One of the things that he would say a lot is that when you're speaking to the audience, you need to have a mindset of less of me and more of we, meaning like the audience doesn't want to always just hear you talking about yourself. You say, say things that get them involved in the speech, that make them feel a level of accountability for themselves and the message that's being given. And so a lot of things I say in the song, I'm saying a lot of we have to do this, we have to do this, we have to do this, because, success is better together and there's more power in the collective. And one of the things that they did when they brought us to this country, the first thing they did was break our collective spirit because they knew that's how we function. And so that's why I'm like, hey, it's not like you're irresponsible, you're not voting, you're an idiot. It's like, we have to do this. We got to stop listening to these people. We have to make sure we vote. We have to make sure that we're coming together. And I feel like, because I'm literally not trying to condemn anybody who wants to make change but doesn't know how, or wants to make change but feels like they do have to rest or whatever. I'm just saying we need all hands on deck. Look, I rest all the time. I take yoga multiple times a week. I get my sleep. So, my days are filled with action for change. And, it ain't resting. Some people talk about resting, and they literally just mean I'm not going to do anything. And I'm like, we can't do that right now. We never could do that in this country.
Mm-hmm.
But they actually aren't doing nothing. I mean, I just add into that because I hear the whole, I'm resting, this is not our time, we voted for Kamala, this is their time. I tell Black folks, even when you say you're at rest, you are not at rest because your body is still fighting through a white supremacist system. There is no rest for Black people in this system. So you can be but you are being impacted by everything that's going on. You're either fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So my question, where are you in this whole conundrum? Because you are not necessarily resting, because every study we've been doing psychologically, emotionally, mentally, socially, Black folks don't get any rest in a racist society. We are always in a state of fight or flight or freeze or fawn because it's always about these small microaggressions that even if it doesn't happen to me, showing me a video of it happening to somebody Black does make it happen to me. So there is no rest. We might as well go out fighting. That's what I'm saying. You need to figure out a small daily active resistance and do that. That's how you rest, by finding small ways to resist. I'm not asking you to be Coretta. Nobody needs you to be, Mary McLeod Bethune. No one's asking you to be Harriet, but you can be who you are at this moment and do something, because we need the collective time, talent, and treasure from everybody to make it through this moment.
Well, Daryl Jones and I were in Alabama at the All Roads Lead to the South because there is such an underinvestment, underfocus in our movements, and especially in the more wider progressive movement around the South. That's where, 57, almost 60% of all Black people live. We've been migrating back home, as we say, and it's really been insulting to watch these state legislatures out of control. So on May 16th, Daryl and I were at the All Roads Lead to the South, and that was amazing. And we said, oh, my goodness, we put all this energy in. Everybody did all this work. We had thousands and thousands of people out there, 3 million views on the live stream. It was amazing. And then 2 days, Daryl, 3 days later,
Mississippi. That's right. And people are all over the streets of Mississippi doing the same thing Montgomery, Alabama may have been the beginning point for the Freedom Summer movement. It really may have been. But Mississippi then picked up the baton, and it's going to be continuing to move forward, which pushes me over to this, Dr. Whitehead, because I've got to ask you this question. Dr. DiBinga really was laying out the Jim Crow 2.0 and the fight for the inclusive democracy, the fight for people to wake up and to stand up. Well, you're part of this Backtalkers Academy. And the Backtalkers Academy seems to be another tool that's going to be used to awaken people and encourage them and equip them to stand up to this racial political climate. Can you share with our maybe I'm wrong, but that's how I took the Backtalkers Academy. Can you share with our audience folks in the goal of the Academy?
No. Okay, no problem. I appreciate that because I do want to kind of note that I actually believe we're in Jim Crow 3.0. I really think that we are in a more advanced and more sophisticated version of Jim Crow because I take into account what's happening with AI and how that is uniquely impacting our community. I take into account what's happening with the decimation of the black middle class through the Doge cuts. Like what we're dealing with now is a lot more sophisticated and it's happening at such a granular level, both when we talk about the macro impact of it, but also the micro impact of the changes we can't see. Because the black middle class has been holding up HBCUs and our D9s and our community groups and our Jack and Jills. What's going to happen to those when we really deal with the reality of 1.5 million black folks in the government who lost their job in the last year? We haven't seen the full impact. Like people are still going to the vineyard this summer. Like they're still like living their best lives. But when the dust settles, the question is, what are we going to do to help hold up the institutions that have previously been held up by the black middle class who were getting funding through their government jobs? So with that, on the table and noting that through ASALH, what we have picked up is our thing is voting rights. We're throwing everything we have right now at the evisceration of our voting rights. Like that is our unique focus. So we are having a national convening. We're having it on 2 days before Juneteenth. On the 17th, we're having it in the evening online. It's going to be a virtual convening. We're talking about voting rights, and we're doing a teach-in. We're trying to help people mobilize around this issue, but also teaching them the history of how did we get here? Like, what actually happened? Not just, what happened with Shelby v. Holder, but, like, what happened right after they put it in place the very next year, how they began attacking the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And then the third piece I just want to note, with the Backtalkers Academy through the African American Policy Forum, headed up by Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw, her new book, which is absolutely incredible, her memoir, is called Backtalkers, an American memoir. And I know you probably had a conversation with her. And so we took that idea of being a certified backtalker, and we developed an academy. I'm sure Barbara can remember. I know I can because I grew up there, at the home of, Black Baptist Southerners. So I'm from South Carolina, and I know what it means to be told, don't you backtalk me. Like, don't backtalk me. I mean, and it's not just what my grandmother said.
You're lucky if you got told might have gotten hit first,
right? Come on, you didn't get hit first. She's like, don't backtalk me with your eyes. Don't backtalk me with your hips. Like, don't backtalk me with anything, right? Because, as black women, we can use our eyes and our hips to say a whole lot without saying any words. She's like, oh, that's backtalk, right? We're leaning into that and saying, you know what? We all know instinctively how to be backtalkers. We need to now get in this space where we have to backtalk to this white supremacist organization. The argument that I make, it's not white supremacy because black folks are comparing themselves to white folks. It's white supremacy because white folks are comparing themselves to us. And when they see any gains that we have, they immediately go on the defensive. Even if it means they have to burn down the house where they live, they'll burn it down before they give us a room. That's the grandeur level of white supremacy. I will go off the side of the mountain in the car with you as long as another black person's in the car. I'm going to take them off the side of the mountain as well. Backtalking means we stand in the space, we get organized, we get the history, we get moving, and we learn how to push back. The time for resting has ended. Have you noticed that since we've been resting, what's been happening in the society? Like, we started resting after Kamala lost, and I'm telling you, from then to now, we are in a different America. Mm-hmm. And this fight right now around democracy, even though it's uniquely tied to what it means to be black in America, it is a much different world. We were not perfect on Jan 19, 2025. It was racist, Black Lives Matter 1.0 and 2.0, but it wasn't this. This right here is so far from where we started that part of the work we have to do is get us back and reset. Since it's burning down anyway, we need to do a radical imagining of what we want to have come next. Why not really lean into what it means to have a society based upon equity, based upon inclusion, and based upon diversity? They're burning this down. So why don't we build from the ashes, kind of using that idea of coming up from the ashes and putting something in place? Back Talkers Academy is going to teach people how to imagine differently, how to work differently, and how to build differently.
If people are interested in finding out more information or want to sign up for the Back Talkers Academy, Dr. White, how do they do that?
They just go to AAPF, the African American Policy Forum, AAPF.org. It's right on the homepage. Come and join the Back Talkers Academy tomorrow at 3 p.m. I run the homeroom with Professor Crenshaw, and so we have different guests every homeroom before they go into the sessions at 3:30, which is Eastern Standard Time. So tomorrow it'll be Professor Crenshaw, Dr. Ibram Kendi, and I in conversation from 3 to 3:30, talking about what it means to be a back talker in terms of looking at his work, his newest work on this issue. And then going at 3:30, there are workshops, there are forums, there are conversations, that it is a full afternoon, and people need to carve the time out. You can do it from home. It's virtual. Kick your feet up, grab your tea, get a pen, get some paper, and be ready to organize and get motivated and get moving.
Now, when I put my glasses on and look at this website, there's a person that looks like Barbara Armstrong that's on that.
Yes, she is. That's what I'm saying. Barbara can't run or she can't hide. Barbara is a certified back talker. So we know when good trouble is happening, I look around, I'm like, okay, is Barbara in the room? Check. Is Kimberly Crenshaw in the room? Check. I'm looking for certain people to be in the room, and then I know I'm in the right place. So absolutely, Sister Armstrong is one of our certified back talkers who will be joining us for one of our sessions. I'm excited about that.
Hey, y'all looking for any other speakers, holla at your boy. I ain't hard to find. I'm just saying.
I just heard you rapping. I'm like, well, why are we not rapping at Back Talkers? I got you already covered, brother. I've already made that note and sent that text. Don't worry. We're going to track you down. Absolutely.
I tell you, Dr. Whitehead, I had just finished maybe a month ago or so Clay Cane's book on Burned Down Master's House. And then I went to Michael Harriot's book on, Black AF history. And then came Dr. DiBinga and his Jim Crow 2.0. I don't know if I could handle going down to Back Talkers. I don't know if South would be ready for me.
I mean, it really, the memoir, Crenshaw's memoir is absolutely fabulous because it really talks about what does it mean to learn how to ask the right questions. I think sometimes when we are raising children in this society, we're teaching children to be seen and not heard. Professor Crenshaw was taught to be heard and seen. And it's just even a radical reimagining of how we need to raise our children to be properly equipped to fight at this moment. And how we can then switch that around. I think that those are some of the bigger questions, like how did she become who she is? What was her work around, standing up for Anita Hill and stepping into the gap? Comments that she made, about Clarence Thomas and this idea that, the world was going to forever change because people didn't believe a black woman. And then having that long eye of history. And I think that's why the memoir is so important because it situates what it means to raise a back talker and then to step into that space of being a back talker. I believe everyone right now, this is a system that's requiring everyone to do something different. There's no more you just vote and you wait for things to work out, or you just wait for the government to decide and announce, or you just, I'm not going to vote because my vote doesn't matter. Those days are gone. I mean, I actually would argue that 47 was a necessary evil because he showed people the actual power that can rest in the hands of one person when they have evil intentions at heart. See, we've never had someone to be so corrupt, so we've never realized that the president had that much power. And what we're realizing, if you have the executive, the legislative, and you have the judicial, you pretty much have a blank check. You can either use that superpower for good or you can use it for evil. And now we're seeing what happens when it goes in the opposite direction.
It's really interesting you list that up because, I think about all the people, because Barbara and I, as you know, are always out amongst the people trying to get folks registered to vote into the polls. And the number of times that we've come across people, and both Dr. DiBinga and Dr. Watkins, I'd love to hear your perspective on it, the number of times we've come across people that say, I'm not going to vote because they're going to do what they want to do anyway. I don't believe in voting. I don't want to be part of this process. Can you speak to what you think the appropriate response is to these individuals and how we can bring them into the fold to see what happens when they don't vote?
So would you like me to speak on it first? I wasn't sure who you were calling on first.
Okay.
So
first. Perfect.
Okay. Thank you. So I do think that in the past, and I think we can all agree upon this, there was this belief that if you didn't vote, then your vote doesn't really make that much of a difference. Even though I never subscribed to that belief, we have seen people who may have not voted in the election of Bush v. Gore. And even though America wasn't quite what you wanted, it wasn't so horrible that you really regretted not participating. What we have found in this last election, we have now showing people in very clear, distinct ways the power that rests in not voting. In the last election, with roughly 74 million voting for Kamala Harris, 77 million voting for 47, if you don't believe that Elon Musk got involved, there were another 90 million people that didn't vote at all. So 90 million people could have swayed this election, even half of that 90 million. So the power of not voting has impacted every single decision we've seen. It's giving the person in power that extra dose they need to be able to move what they believe with no type of accountability. So I am reminding people that the power of the vote rests in the heart of what it means to live in a democracy. I say take people back to 1776. What does it mean that 250 years later, the exact thing that those so-called founding fathers were fighting against is exactly what we have now? That we are being told through the Declaration of Independence that the only way you can stop this type of government is that people have to rise up and remove this government through a democratic process. That's the argument that I'm using with people, getting them fired up about the power of their vote and the meaning of what it looks like when you don't participate. Because you don't participate in the vote, but you do participate in the consequences of the vote.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and that's how you end up with 8.5% black unemployment. That's how, which is what we're suffering right now. That's how you end up with, 600,000 African American women unemployed.
Yeah.
That's how you end up with people being exposed today for refusing to promote blacks and women. That's how you end up with this anti-blackness pervading not only our ideology of so many people, but also invading the actual practices and real life experiences. In my neighborhood, every day I get out here and I walk, and I see home after home that has been abandoned, not abandoned, but people have moved out because they were federal workers. They no longer have those jobs. And in my neighborhood, what I'm watching is that those homes are not being resold to black people. My neighborhood's racial composition is changing. And it's white people buying these homes, or it is Latinos, but I am not seeing blacks. So people, we're suffering, and we are wrong to think that somehow we sit this out. I did want to make sure, Daryl, that everybody knows that on June 17th, that there will be part of the Academy, Black Talkers Academy, and I will be part of the plenary and part of the faculty for that day. And I'm looking forward to it, but also know, everyone, that on June 17th, we are planning another mass mobilization. This time, we believe in Atlanta. We're targeting Atlanta. We'll have more details on that mobilization as the weeks come. So be attentive. And I heard about the ASALA program. That's all just dynamic. But it is time for us to rise up this Juneteenth. Let's celebrate our heritage, and also let's commit to fighting for it.
And I know that Dr. DiBinga, you didn't get a chance to respond about the message that you would bring to these young folks and other folks that are saying, I don't do politics, I'm not going to vote, it doesn't make a difference.
Well, my question to them is very simple. If voting was not important, why are they trying so hard to stop you from doing it? Like, they're not trying to stop you from going to the club. They're not trying to stop you from going to concerts. They're not trying to stop you from playing PlayStation and Xboxes. They're trying to stop you from voting. And if you ask enough why questions, you would see exactly why. I actually ran for city council in D.C. in 2018, and I was out on the street petitioning, and one woman walked by, and she's like, I don't do that politics stuff. Well, you just finished Clay Kane's work. You know what he always says. If you don't do politics, politics will do you. And I just, do my best to remind them of the local implications, because sometimes the national stuff might be a little esoteric for folks, but I'm like, every single thing we're dealing with right now, from that pothole to the street lights to the crime, somebody got put in office that is affecting your life. And if you care about that, we can always go into the conversation about our ancestors and all of that, which is important, but some people need to have it be made very practical to what they're dealing with right now, whether it's taxes, whether, do you really like the fact that your school's got holes in the ceilings and have no music programs? That's a consequence of voting. You like the property taxes and how they fund your public school? That's a consequence of voting. So when we get to that granular level, I feel like that has some success, not with everybody, but with some people.
All right,
and you're right on. And you're right on point with talking about the power of your vote and who you put into office. Our next guest I'm going to bring up now, he's an example, I believe, of what you were just saying, Dr. DiBinga and Dr. Whitehead. Mayor Phillip Jones, he's the 27th mayor of Newport News, Virginia. He is and was the youngest directly elected mayor in Newport News, Virginia history. The Newport News, Virginia has been designated as an all-American city under his leadership. He holds a BS in history from the U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis. He also holds an MBA and a Master's of Public Policy from Harvard University. He's an infantry officer with the U.S. Marine Corps, and he is a major in the U.S. Marine Corps Reserves. He also sits as the first vice president of the African American Mayors Association. Welcome to Igniting Change on your maiden voyage, Mayor Phillip Jones. Hello.
I really appreciate the opportunity to be on the show, not only to talk about Newport News, but also the African American Mayor Association. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here. Barbara and I were going through all the stuff that we go through on social media, looking at this stuff. Go ahead, Barbara. And came across this letter. I'll let you tell the story, Barbara. Came across this letter. Go ahead, Barbara.
All right, now. So we're on the coalition for All Roads Lead to the South that did the May 16th activation and has been doing all these activations around the country since. And we, Angela Rye and other people started posting. Vincent Evans, all kinds of people started posting this letter that was written by the black mayors. Said, folks, look at what the black mayors have done. They stood up. They are, making demands, and they're telling the corporate community, no, you don't get to hide. You have responsibility right now, and we're calling you out. So they were sending it around, and we immediately, Daryl and I immediately said, we got to make sure people know about what the black mayors are doing. So we were delighted, just moved that you were able to respond to us so quickly to join our show today. So with that said, can you please tell our audience about your association of black mayors and tell the audience about this profound letter that you sent?
I'm always happy to talk all things around black mayors and black leadership. Currently, I sit as the first vice president to the African American Mayors Association. And what that means is we represent about 500 black mayors across the country, a large percentage of the American population. And think of us very similar to the Congressional Black Caucus, but instead of the federal arena. We play at the state and local level. And what I tell every single person is your local government has a day-to-day impact on your life, whether it's your schools, crime, roads, all of that flows through the mayors.
Wow. And Mayor Jones, the corporate letter, the corporate America letter that the African American Mayors Association put out, can you share with us what is it that the black mayors are calling on corporate America to do?
I think the letter is very simple. The letter states that we are at an inflection point. We are at a moment in time. We need all hands on deck. There is a organized effort to disenfranchise and to silence the voices of millions of Black Americans in the South, and we have to do something. And this is more than just a political letter. We need our corporate and business partners to also step up. It reminds me of years ago when they talk about, oh, if it doesn't really affect me, I'm not going to say anything. Well, I would disagree. What happens in the South is going to affect the entire country in a negative way. And so we love the, social media, black squares, and all of that is great, but it's time to put money where your mouth is and ensure that we have policies that stand up for all people in America.
And what I loved about your letter is that your letter made demands on the corporate community. You asked, who are you funding? Because we know that a lot of these evil actors are getting major money from corporations to destroy Black districts, to destroy Black political representation, and they need to be held accountable. And if they're sitting back trying to pretend that they're not involved in funding these people, then they need to also be exposed. So I am glad that you made that request, and you can talk about it more if I misrepresented it. But I love that you asked them to get affirmatively into the fight for protecting Black political power. So tell us more about specifically what the letter requested.
So directly, we are urging corporate America to publicly come out and reaffirm its commitment to not only equal representation, but also voting rights. I think for a long time, corporations said, hey, listen, we're all about maximizing shareholder engagement. We're about the stock price. We really don't play in politics. Well, that's no longer true. You see what's happening in the governor's race in California with corporate PACs. You see what's happening all around the country. And what I would tell everyone is that this American experiment of democracy, it's not going to be measured in D.C. alone. In fact, it's often measured in hundreds of cities across the South and across the entire country. And so we are continuing to advocate to all of our corporate partners, the ones that are in African-American communities that have made a lot of money selling products to us. We are more than just things to market to. You're going to have to pick a side. And ultimately, we all believe that history is going to remember not only the leaders, but also the corporations that stood with these African-American cities and ultimately stood to promote democracy across America.
Yeah, do you believe it would be accurate to say, Mayor Jones, that the cities are really where the rubber meets the road when it comes to things that are happening on the federal level? I mean, all the redistricting and everything, once it hits your county council, your city council, your municipality council, whatever it is, that's going to impact what roads get, treated, snow plowed, what sidewalks get cleared, who gets elected to be able to speak for the community, who's in the position to take care of the individuals that make up the local government and ultimately the federal government. So when we hear about the Jim Crow 2.0 that's out there for the gerrymandering and redistricting, we hear about the Black mayors. Your letter is certainly an example of being a back talker, of going back at them. Is the real essence here for the Black mayors to say we're speaking up for the people that we know, our constituents, are going to be impacted by what we see happening across the country? Is that really the essence of this letter?
It is. I think when you look at what mayors, city councils, local officials do, that agenda spans public safety, economic mobility, public health, youth development. We are where things get done. If this is going to happen, you're going to silence the voices of millions of people in the South. And what's going to happen is when they are not represented, there will be certain voices that will no longer be at the room, certain people who are not going to be at the table, and you're going to see a direct impact on that when it comes to school funding, which roads get built, when they put highways through Black cities. All of that is going to occur if we have voices not in the room.
And Dr. DiBinga, do you think that what you're hearing Mayor Jones lay out, what you've heard Dr. K. Whitehead lay out, are all of those the factors that you've been laying out in Jim Crow 2.0, and where you think we need to go as a people during this time and this political climate with what's being thrown at the African American voter and the African American citizen in this country?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I say in the song is that, this whole thing was preventable, but here we are. Ain't no turning back now. We got to steer this car. We got to know the Constitution to understand our rights. We got to come up with solutions that will win this fight. All of these, points that, Dr. Carsanya has been making and the mayor has been saying, like, this is it. This is that. What they're saying, they're representing the leadership, they're representing the scholarship, and they're representing the action. And we're seeing in real time that there are people that, that I call upstanders who are actually doing this work. We talked about this last night on Roland Martin's show, the mayor's letter. And thank you, Mr. Mayor, because that letter was so powerful. And we have to make these demands. One thing I said on the show last night, Roland Martin, was like, whoever funds you runs you. And if we just get comfortable accepting their checks without making any demands, the corporations know that as well. They know that these are just write-offs for them, and these Black folks ain't going to say nothing. But a letter like that puts them on blast. A letter like that puts them on blast to say, hey, be careful. You might end up as the next Target. You might end up as the next some of these other associations out here. This is Black people realizing and manifesting our power, especially economically. Like Dr. King always said, individually we might be poor, but economically we are powerful. And I really respect the mayors for doing that because they're representing everything that we're talking about right now.
And Dr. DiBinga, if people want to reach you, what is the best way for them to reach you, and how do they get a hold of that Jim Crow 2.0 song?
Well, they can go wherever they stream their music and type in Jim Crow 2.0 is alive and real, and it'll come up. It's on Apple, Spotify. It's on all the platforms. If people want to learn more about me or reach out to me, bring me out to speak or whatever, they can go to Omekongo.com, or easy way, they can go to upstanderinternational.com. It leads to the same place, upstanderinternational.com. And, of course, subscribe to the youtube.com/Omekongo. Follow me on Instagram. I'm everywhere you type in my name.
Thank you.
And Mayor Jones, the same question of you. Folks are listening. They want to learn more about this mayor's letter. They want to learn more about the African American Mayors Association. How do people find out more information about the African American Mayors Association, and how do they reach you?
Thanks for the time on the show. Really enjoyed it. You can learn more about our organization at ourmayors.org, as well as all different socials, as well as for me, Mayor Phillip Jones on all socials. This is an important conversation, and I want to tell all the listeners, we need you in the fight. Join us in the arena. We have some days ahead, but I believe that our best days are ahead of us. Thanks all.
Thank you so much for joining us. And Barbara, I had this save my homie from Baltimore for last with Dr. K. Whitehead. Dr. K, if folks want to learn more about you, want to learn more about Back Talkers, where do they go? What do they do? And how do they listen to WEAA Morgan State University Radio?
Thank you so much. Folks, you can go to aapf.org to find out more about the Back Talkers. You can go to ASALH, ASALH.org to find out what we're doing as the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. And then you can listen to me on WEAA.org, 88.9 FM today with Dr. K. It streams everywhere, so you can get on with it on every day, Monday through Friday, 3 to 6 p.m., the only Black woman solo hosting a drive time radio talk show in the country. Come and listen.
Oh, now.
That's what I'm talking about, Barbara. All right. Certainly want to thank our guests for being with us today, Mayor Phillip Jones, the first Vice President of the African American Mayors Association and Mayor of Newport News, Virginia, Dr. Kate Whitehead. Always a pleasure to have you on our show. Professor Omekongo DiBinga, always great to have you with us as well. Folks, pick up that Jim Crow 2.0. Go also and register to become part of Back Talkers, and find out more about the African American Mayors Association. Folks, we say it, and we'll say it again. And there comes a time when you got to get off the sidewalks, get into the streets, and get into good trouble. This is that time. Voting is underway in California. Voting is underway in various states across this country. It's time for you to check your voter registration and get involved in the voting process. Get involved to make a change. Get in good trouble. Go to goodtroubleliveson.org and join us on the John Lewis Weekend of Action, July 17th through the 19th. Until next Tuesday, noon Eastern Standard Time. Peace, everybody.
Peace.
The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the host and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of Urban One Incorporated, Radio One, or any of its subsidiary companies.
The preceding program was paid for by Barbara Arnwine